hard in.
Boom.
We swapped sides, Alex.
Now I'm in control.
That's right. You're the captain now.
When we last parted, I was but a learner. Now I am the master.
Oh, dude. Not to already derail everything. That Ahsoka Mando news. Ah, man, I'm excited. I know we talked a lot about it on Toy Anxiety yesterday.
Yeah.
But oh man, I'm ready. I'm stoked. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for a Star Wars movie again. Come on.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I was watching season 2 of Mandalorian, I was like, I would have done anything to watch that first episode against the Crate Dragon and the last episode when Luke returns on the big screen. Like that would have been I would absolutely watch Mandalorian, like, or just even like the first episode of the season and the last episode of a season. I would 100% watch all of those in the theater with a bunch of people.
Hey, maybe they'll do something like that leading up to the movie. I bet theaters will do that. They'll have like Mandalorian marathons leading up to the Mando movie.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll 100%. I'll host it. It'll be great. I'll go to the local theater.
Do a Mystery Science Theater style commentary.
That's right.
Oh shit, they should do that. Like they need to get C-3PO and R2-D2, their little shadows in front of the screen. Maybe Chewbacca.
Do you know who the third droid should be?
Who?
It's too bad he passed away because I would have got Rex from Star Tours.
Yeah,
the third droid. That would have been.
Maybe it can be Pele Moto.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Right? She's got sass to her.
Can you imagine Amy Sedaris doing Mystery Science Theater style commentary for Star Wars?
That's what I think about that at least twice a week. I think that would be so much fun. I love that. Well, hey everyone, welcome to Gotham City Tonight. Welcome to the show. I'm Ryan Dole. This is Alex. We are, we're hanging out here. We're going to talk about the Aaron Eckhart's hot takes on comic book fatigue, comic book movie fatigue, which I don't believe is a thing, but we're going to get talking to it. But before we get rolling, say a quick hello and howdy do to the chat. And thank you everyone for being here. We got Christopher Negri here. We've got Derek Hoover. My boy Johnny Cock, Raging Dino. That's a great name, by the way. Davey Sockrocker. Oh, my best friend and yours, Matt Bush, is here. Zach, I'm going to try to say your last name this time. Kinsella. Zach Kinsella. Andrews Gady's Toys is here. Just watched the first episode of Echo and no fatigue there. Absolute. I watched the first 2 last night. If you're into your street level heroes, man, that show just ticks all those boxes. It's awesome. Cougar McGillicuddy is here. Bacon McShig, Charlie Square, Dorlaxian, Shiny Plastic People. Yes, AEW had a 5-minute overrun. Great episode tonight. I had it going on in the background while I was working. Flash 739, Nolan. Thank you for hanging out. Michael Miller, Lucha Johnny, Brian Brink, Master of the Charts. Dude's awesome. The Deadheads and Tony Taponi. Thank you all for being here and coming and hanging out. As we're just gonna talk some shit about some comics and comic movies. Before we even start getting into the topic, I did some picking up, and I know you did some picking up. I was looking for one book, but I then found like the one that the Masterworks of John Byrne.
Yeah.
While I was looking for that, I found a different book altogether, making me completely forget the reason why I went to the comic book store to begin with. And I picked up The Art of Arthur Adams' X-Men. I think Art Adams has to be in my top 5 artists ever. Like, he's right up there with me for like Jim Lee, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, right? Like those three always come to mind of like when I close my eyes and think of people's artwork, they are up there. Like that's
Yeah.
probably my top three of iconic artists. And don't get me,
Well,
I love Mark Silvestri and Babs Tarr. I love all
yeah.
of them. But man, this is a
It's
great,
also like
great
sort of one of
book.
those like keystones to all different artists, like influence of the 80s and 90s. It's like you can go from you know, Neil Adams to John Byrne to Art Adams to or Art Adams and Michael Golden, and then that gets you Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, and like it's just like they're in everyone's DNA.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because you see that you do. That's perfect way to put it. Like how you go from like John Byrne to Michael Golden to like you see that evolution of the style.
Yeah.
And then even when you see like even the old Joe Mad stuff, like when he was breaking into the business, and same with Jim Lee, like his early stuff, they all looked like Art Adams art.
Yeah.
Like they were all they were all trying to copy this guy.
And I'd be interested to know what like when like the manga influence kind of comes in, because like you can see it in Art Adams' work, certainly like Jim Lee, and then by the time you get to Joe Mad, like I was reading like the last volume of Akira and looking at like all the like sort of like Tetsuo mutations and stuff, and be like, oh, that's the phalanx, like that is 100% like that those colored reprint editions that Marvel was it Epic or whoever was putting out of the Akira comics. Like Joe Mad must have been getting his hands on those and starting up X-Men, like just drawing all that crazy techno organic like matter.
Yes. Getting this book made me want to go back and try to find the Epic collections for New Mutants. Like I don't know if like have you flipped through you bought this book as well, correct?
Ryan texted me a picture of it. I hadn't heard of it. I wasn't aware of this book. I immediately ordered it on it. It's gonna be here tomorrow. I can't wait to look through it.
Like there's like I said, there's like beautiful, nice, big splash pages in here. There's none of his card art, like from Marvel Series 2. None of that is in here for whatever reason. But I like they got his X-Men, his classic X-Men covers that he did.
Man, look at that Sauron. That's so cool.
So get this. These two covers, I actually have them signed by Art Adams.
What?
Those were the two that I chose, those two and two trading cards from Marvel Series 2 for Art Adams to sign.
You chose wisely.
Thank you. I'm very proud of my choices. We even go through the X-Men annual that he did with the introduction of the X-Babies.
And all manner of X branding.
Yeah, right. And
the X animals.
the Miss Piggy Dazzler will forever live in my heart. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. Again,
see, Hasbro, we need an Amazon box set that is just like X babies, X animals, like all those crazy.
We gotten one X baby so far. We've only gotten Wolverine,
and it's like
it's pretty Scotty Young looking, right?
Yeah, it's like a it's from the whatever the most recent incarnation of Exiles was it? They did like an Exiles, but that ain't we need Art Adams, Mojoverse 1980s annual X babies.
Right, like this is awesome.
Just so cool,
folks.
He draws a mean sentinel.
Dude, anytime he draws like giant monsters, right? Like it's just like I have another sketchbook that he released, and I was trying to find it before this. I look at all these damn shelves. You think I could find anything in these damn things? But like he's got his Godzilla covers in there and all that stuff, and it's so good. I love Art Adams. I love him. His stuff is the best. He draws.
Wow.
It's so good. It's so good, dude. When you guys decide to do what's that?
What's the name of the book again? Just for people
Oh,
following
it's
at home.
the Art of Arthur Adams X-Men. And that's it. That's simple. And it's just all his X-Men book, right? I love this so much. This is one of these I don't know. If you guys ever decide to do 1/6 comic style figures, please do Art Adams style X-Men figures.
Man,
That
yeah.
would be how do you get the rights for something like that, right? Like it's
Well, that's the thing. It's like I don't know. Like where do you start though? Because it's like you'd want John Byrne, you'd want Jim Lee, you'd want Art Adams certainly. Like it
yeah,
just
where
it
do
would
you
be the
how
list
you could
goes
just do a
on.
series of Wolverines, you know.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, why am I blanking his name? He did the X-Men Giant Size X-Men #1.
Dave Cockrum.
Dave Cockrum. Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh
Well, I wonder,
yes,
could you get away with having the John Byrne style X-Men come with alternate Dave Cockrum heads
right?
for them?
Uh
Certainly for Nightcrawler, like you would need a Dave Cockrum
that
Nightcrawler.
well Nightcrawler wouldn't be what he is without Dave Cockrum. 100%. Like that was his
Yeah.
boy, and it
Oh
showed. Uh,
yeah.
there was and who? Okay, there was before Byrne did the Dark Phoenix saga. See, now I'm just blanking with names. I can see the artwork. It's he was doing X-Men with the iconic picture of Wolverine in the sewer of like you took your best shot. Now it's my turn, and it's him like in the sewer looking back.
Yeah,
He did
that
that
is John
whole.
Byrne, right? That's
That is
John
that
Byrne.
John Byrne?
Yeah, he did that. That was all in the he did the whole Dark Phoenix saga.
Man,
That image though is
that
so
whole thing.
cool.
That is the image to me where I feel like that's what made Wolverine the man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
for sure. That was kind of like the first moment where Wolverine was really came into his own as that
that
it's
unstoppable
loner
badass. Like
badass, like yeah.
don't
And I
f
and
with
I was
him.
looking through the artist edition. What's so great about it is that so the way that goes down is that the X-Men are going up against the Hellfire Club, and it's so great
Yeah,
because they get their asses handed to them. Like it's the Hellfire Club, they're just completely out. The X-Men are completely outmatched, and Wolverine, who's like pretty tough, he's going up against Harry Leland, who seems like Wolverine should be able to take him in 2 seconds. And they're guys like dressed as like 17th century noblemen. Like they look like they would not like
they're
dandies,
noblemen
like not.
at a fetish party, at an underground
Yeah,
fetish party. That's what it is.
they're not guys that you would expect to like do their own dirty work, right? But they are.
Right.
They're all extremely powerful. And so Wolverine goes up against Harry Leland, who uses his like gravity manipulation powers to make Wolverine so heavy that he falls through like every floor of the Hellfire Club building down into the sewers, where he literally like flushes Wolverine down the toilet basically. And you're like, oh shit,
Right.
the X-Men they just got their asses kicked. They're done. Like and then the issue of course ends with like Wolverine in the sewer. Like it's like now it's Wolverine alone, like to save the X-Men. And then the next issue is just this whole thing of Wolverine fighting his way from the bowels of the Hellfire Club all the way back up to the top, and just so that he can get the high ground, just so he can get over Harry Leland, like just to keep
Yeah.
working all his way up just to be above this guy, so that when he uses his powers, the increased gravity of Wolverine ends up crushing Harry Leland into the ground. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great. If you
I
haven't read the Dark Phoenix saga, read it.
and it's all of that whole versus the Hellfire Club, the Dark Phoenix saga, and then everything where Wolverine and Nightcrawler go hang out in Canada for a bit. That's all of the Dark Phoenix saga epic collection. All of it.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna get, well, there's several epic X-Men collections that you should get, but that should be one of the ones on your list. There's one coming out soon. It's like I can't remember what volume it is, but I just remember it from the cover because Doctor Doom is on the cover. And that epic collection is going to come with the 4-part mini series of Nightcrawler that came with the introduction of Bamps and all that stuff.
And that's all Dave Cockrum. That's all Dave Cockrum.
That's all Dave.
Art.
Yep. All those covers are gorgeous. I want Marvel Legends of that so bad.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for that swashbuckler Nightcrawler figure for
With the
sure.
headband.
I don't have it with me, but one of the pickups I got was after getting the John Byrne artist edition. I tracked down one of the. Do you remember the Essentials, the like Marvel Essentials books?
Yep,
They were
the black and white ones. Yep,
black and white, and but not just like a black and white copy of the like colored art. It's just the inked line art. It's like almost kind of like having like an affordable artist edition. These are great. Like I highly recommend the Marvel like essential editions.
And they're super affordable.
Yeah, or they used to be. Some of them are like because they're hard. They can be. Some of them are kind of hard to find, and they can be pricey. But this was only like this cost me like $20. It was volume 2 of the X-Men, and it's the whole John Byrne Dark Phoenix saga into Days of Future Past, into the Wendigo issue we were talking about last time. And so yeah, definitely recommend if you're into just seeing like the beautiful like ink work, line art, like, you know, that's a great way. Also just a great way to get like, you know, a bunch of X-Men stories all at once.
It's totally. I want to take a quick shout out to the chat here. We got Jake Stevens for Forlom Dezuckus. Didn't the 3/4 M Marvel Universe line have a little psych? It did, but guess what?
Oh wow, really?
They did one with an X baby in it. It had like a rogue and something else. But we need them in the larger scale. We just
the box set. Come on, box set and be done with it.
Exactly. Jack Knight 73, thank you for being here and hanging out. Right. Hang on. These Stanley's Toy Channel, Dole, what do you think of the new McFarlane figures? We're gonna get into that in a hot minute. Trust me. That was quite the hullabaloo. I have to thank Shiny Plastic People for actually giving me the heads up on that. Pretty wild. And Craig's here. Toy Anxiety. Good evening to you, sir. Right. Oh, Randall Guzak's here as well. Thank you for being here, hanging out. Yes, Greg Capullo is released.
I'm so psyched
he's
for
such
that.
a nice dude too.
He's one of my favorite Batman artists. I'm just gonna say it. Like I think his, you know, I'm talking all time. Like I think he nails he gets Batman so well. Yeah.
He does. And the way he even he does a side profile and it looks kind of like a helmet, but that it's still there.
It's got a little bit of Bruce Timm in it. It's I mean, he's just such a fantastic artist. And I think a little while ago, you know, or years ago, he was posting on Twitter sketches of like Ben Grimm and some Marvel characters, and I was like, oh man, if only he could do some Marvel again. Yeah.
I loved, actually, it's one thing I loved during the pandemic is when like these big artists that were who've never done certain characters were doing everything from cereal mascots to just like,
dude, Mike Mignola was like drawing Pokemon.
He did Count from Sesame Street, you know, like,
and all brilliant, all masterpieces. All of them.
Like, God. Like, I kept thinking was make this an art book, please. Somebody do it, right?
Make it somebody a comic do it.
I want to show a couple of my other pickups that I get. So, for anyone who does not know, I am a big fan of collecting old Lois Lane comics.
Oh, me too, buddy.
The weirder and unfortunately sometimes the more inappropriate they get. The better they are for me, because there's only 6 different covers you can get with a Lois Lane. It's either she's trying to kill or she's trying to kill Superman. Superman's trying to kill her. She's cheating on Superman, or Superman's cheating on her, or like it's just or they're both like in love. But it's just like
it's like both her superpower and her kryptonite is jealousy.
Yeah, right. Like there she is marrying Bruce Wayne, and Superman's just sitting there sulking and watching, right? And this one's just a classic.
Yeah.
Like Superman for some reason
during that era, DC's main marketing ploy with their covers was like characters being dicks to each other. You know, it's like Like,
Yes.
also I love like all the Brave and the Bolds where it's or Superman and Batman where it's just the two, and this is like more like I think 60s, 70s maybe, but a lot of Neil Adams stuff where it's literally they're always like framing each other for crimes and like it's like one of them will be like tied to a stake and they're like, Batman,
Yeah.
how
Oh.
can you turn the townspeople against me? It's like
Oh.
if you just take the covers just out of context, it's just like the greatest evil rivalry of all time. Just these two
Yeah.
guys like
It's
trying to ruin each other's lives.
so I grabbed two more upon my travels. I grabbed Lois Lane, another one where she's going to just like throw this giant rock of kryptonite onto Superman and kill him. She's had enough. She's had enough of his shit. And this other one where Lois Lane has turned old, and that's her main thing here. Get rid of him, Thorn. If he sees me like this, I'll die. All right.
Yeah, that could have been her catchphrase.
It's so wild. I'm just like, is this really it? It's like even this one, like great Lois. Now we have that rock, heave that rock into space. Then we'll start planning our wedding. Like
I
she's
love it.
completely like, we either get married or I kill you. Like this is.
I love what's that one where she's like in a little car and it's like she can't leave this like plastic bubble or she'll die, but
Yeah.
she's like everything she has to do is from this like car.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. All right. Okay, folks. While he goes and grabs that, I want to show off one more thing that I got as well. I don't know if anyone's into these. Oh, you're back already. That was like
Yeah,
really
so I
fast.
can actually illustrate what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It says, behold, friends, you wanted proof Batman is evil. His fellow demons have turned against him. They lit this fire to execute him, and he's using his like X-ray, his heat vision to light the fire. And Batman's going, Superman, you're lying, Superman. I'm innocent. How can I convince these superstitious people he's secretly using his heat vision to start the blaze?
That's so. See,
They're just
I
so
love
great.
Durl actually brings it up too. Like the early Wonder Woman comics are equally insane. It's I love it, which is why this is all important stuff to go over when we get into our main topic tonight as well. But I got this as a gift, one of these giant sized promo magazines. This one's for Superman 2.
That's sick. Wow.
And this is like even the back cover. So good. Just Superman and Lois standing there hanging out. But there's an ad in here for something that is it's the 80s. It's the only time you can get anything like this, and it has to be the 80s. Hang on. Let me there's Niagara Falls. That was filmed in Canada.
The scene. That movie's so good. Superman 2, like
it is great. Hang on. I'm going to see if I can where did this you'd think I would have bookmarked it at the very least. Oh, there it is. Okay, I found it. Character phone salute.
Okay.
And what's the funny thing is there's Superman in his like lawyer's office, I'm going to assume, right? So for him
or for her.
And Wonder Woman for her.
Oh, okay.
Just to make sure, everyone's included here.
That's so awesome. Again, do you think they'll make those again when the James Gunn movie comes out? Like, if it, like we have to pray it like resonates so that we can get this crazy shit again.
It doesn't even need to be a phone. It can look like this and be this big and ridiculous. And it's it's a phone charger. It's that and a Bluetooth speaker, right? Phone charger, Bluetooth speaker. Boom.
Oh, if it had one of those the little like cylinder like he puts the kryptonite shard into at the Fortress of Solitude, but you put your phone in that and it charges your phone.
And it lights up the kryptonite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, it would be amazing. So Sarah Douglas, who's also in this, as we all know, she gets some, like, only in the 80s would you get this kind of spice.
Oh my god.
In a magazine for all ages. Like, it's like the 80s are wild time. It's the Wild West. Like, that's why we can't do anything now, because we went too far in the 80s and 90s. We went way too far. Now we gotta scale everything
crazy. It's a crazy time.
But this is like super sweet. And I don't know if you've heard of this magazine called Sketch. This would have came out. So. This would have been like early 2000s ish. I think this would have came out. But they talk about drawing techniques and all that other kind of stuff. So I got this issue of Sketch, and it's all Adam Hughes, and it's him going through like his techniques, what he uses, as far as just like for, he does answers and questions. So
that's awesome.
Do you remember? So I don't know if anyone remembers the drawing board from Wizard magazine.
Of course.
But it's very much like that. And he actually talks about like how you draw different body types in women. And, he goes through and he, speaking of Hellfire Club, right. And how he does his covers, his covers, how he designs his statues. He talks about the kind of markers and inks he uses. Right. So,
wow, this is sick. That's awesome. What year / month is that?
So this is, well, I can tell you it's issue number 39.
Oh,
cool. Let's see if I can find a year on this. Oh my gosh, there are no. Here we go. 2009.
Oh, cool.
So
man, Adam Hughes, his Justice League International run is really great. Like, I could stare at the way he draws Martian Manhunter's forehead. It's like mesmerizing. The way he's always going to be shadows and
he's always going to be known as the guy that does cheesecake. But
I may be the only person who's like, Adam Hughes. Oh, you mean like Martian Manhunter's forehead?
No, but it's kind of like when you think about him, and to an extent, Frank Cho, right, who do that similar, like they're very much known for like how they draw their women and the cheesecake and the pinup covers and all that kind of stuff. Those guys also draw amazing aliens and men and expressions. Like when I think of Frank Cho, I honestly think more of his dinosaurs and his gorillas.
Yeah, I mean, I read him for the articles.
I buy their work for the story. 100%. 100%. Okay. Those are my big pickups. Did you grab anything? Is there anything you want to show off and
well, I got
brag
this.
about?
Speaking of kind of Adam Hughes,
yeah, I should have been making things big here. God, this is why Craig is the boss.
Now this is a Wonder Woman figure.
Yeah. Matthew Customs on Instagram did a repaint where he just painted the figure to look like Wonder Woman, and it's so good.
Yeah, this is the perfect Wonder Woman figure. I mean, the face is so good. Like, that's Wonder Woman right there.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
So I pre-ordered that.
If you don't know, this is the Marvel Legends Power Princess, and it is an amazing one. If you're a Wonder Woman fan, you need this.
Nice verbiage. I like that. You do need it. You got me with that, because I definitely I ordered it pretty much right after you were like, this is the best figure of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
I think
because I wasn't gonna get
I don't know if this is
I wasn't gonna buy that. I don't know if this is
canon, but these look like little W's in her shield. Like, do you think that's a little? I mean, they could be M's, right? But I think they're W's.
Yeah,
do you think that's a little nod? That's a little wink.
They're totally doing it. I know the Marvel Legends guys try to act like they know nothing about DC, but they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
or somebody, at least one of the designers knows exactly what they're doing, like 100%.
It
I
makes me
love it.
kind of wish that Marvel had a character that looked more directly like Batman or Superman for them to do a, Squadron Supreme of.
God, they're so like it's so funny because you look at them, you know exactly who they're supposed to be, but at the same time, it's like, if they could just go a little closer. And I know that uh, DC has their version of the Avengers as well, which I think is also super fun.
Well, dude, we mentioned it last time, but if they do an Authority movie, do you think we'll eventually get to see the like Avengers parody from the Authority? That would you like Frank Quitely's redesigns of the Avengers as like
Yeah,
Authority villains?
I could 100% see it happening just because it's James
Yeah,
Gunn.
yeah.
Like I could 100%. And speaking of world hopping, let's talk about Psycho Pirate and these psycho prices, with
Oh,
this new DC
damn!
multiverse line, right? Snap.
I see what
Okay,
you did there.
here we go. We have a
Whoa!
new Crisis line, the Psycho Pirate. By the way, this is an amazing figure and another character that's long overdue. Does not. I would love to get Psycho Pirate as a superpowers figure. This is a character we don't talk about enough.
I have a
Man,
confession to make. I've
sure.
never read Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I do not
Have you
know
read
who
any of the
Psycho
Crisis books
Pirate is.
at all?
No, well, you mean like I read like Grant Morrison's Crisis, that
Oh, like
from
Final
10 years ago
Crisis?
or whatever.
Yeah,
Final
okay.
Crisis, I think.
I don't even think he's part of that. There's a couple. There was that and like the 52 books that came out weekly, and he played a part in that as well. But he can see through and go travel just through multiverses. That's his gimmick, more or less. That's the best way to put it, right?
Dorlaxon just told me to turn in my nerd card. I know it's like
Really?
one of the gaping voids in my nerd knowledge. I mean, I know about it, right? I got the gist, but I have not actually read it.
Yeah. Oh, Toy Shiz popped off right for it, which is that's awesome. You know what? This is this is where I lose my like YouTube cred, my toy tuber cred, because I've never watched anything from the Froosh before. I've never watched anything from Toy Shiz. I hear all of those guys are great, but I just don't
Where
have
do you
enough
get your
time in the
toy
day to watch
news?
all these. Well, I follow them all on Instagram. I actually thought a lot of these guys were all
Oh, okay.
Instagram accounts. I didn't know they had YouTube channels. But I
Ah.
hear they're all super nice people. So again, one day when work slows down, I will. I don't know. Can I really sit and watch more YouTube than I already do? Well, time will tell. I guess the big thing about the big thing about this line, for this build a figure, $53.52 a pop per figure. Coming out in
Yep.
March. That's the thing that's getting everyone really amped up and worked up. I'm about
Yeah.
to read a sad comment. I wish I had the sad comment music for this channel. But and I should have said I didn't have time to actually like save it on my laptop because it's first off and again I have to thank Shiny Plastic People for this. Would not be able to get to do this one without him. But they did a nice little graphic.
Oh
This is
no.
in the McFarlane Toys Discord. Everybody, this is like in their Discord, and I find it absolutely hilarious.
How quickly
Would
they
do this.
turn on you, like, I mean,
Holy
this is the guy
moly!
who was
Like,
he was maintaining that $20 price point while Hasbro's, going up to 30 and 40, like,
and
yeah,
he
you
was
can't do that
bragging about it
forever,
too, right?
right?
Like, wasn't it just like last month he did like one of his like digital town halls because everything's digital in
Yeah.
McFarlane land, and he was legit bragging about how it's like, oh, we keep our price points down and we could do that. I don't need the money. We don't need to re-release figures. And if we do, they'll be different and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, then when Shiny Plastic brought this to my attention. By the way, also follow Shiny Plastic People on on YouTube as well, folks. Go watch his stuff as well. You know, he's like, it just blew my mind. Here is the caption, the very long caption above it. It's time we took a stand. Because this is the first wave of figures to be at $50. So it's like, when you think about it, it's 4 figures for $200. That's a lot. I'm sure you're all aware of the recent monitor wave and the disturbing price hikes that came with it. As paying customers that we have invested in McFarlane toys for years, this reveal came both as a shock and a betrayal to us. As much as I love Todd, there needs to be a point where we put our foot down and say, enough. Like all dictatorships, negative change happens gradually. Trust is built, and then trust is used to slowly coerce people into surrendering their rights to a higher force. And we still have the power. We're at the point where we can see through Todd's scheme, and we could do something to fight it. So I propose that we make our voices heard. Refuse to buy this wave. Make sure not even one figure of this wave is bought. In addition, gather every unopened McFarlane DC Multiverse figure you have in your collection and return it to the nearest retail store. My wish is that as the shelves begin flooding with unwanted McFarlane DC Multiverse figures, the store will stop ordering them from Todd and hit the company where it hurts their wallet. Only then will Todd be able to see the error of his ways and the pain he's caused. Only then he will change. We're a family. This is our time to prove it. Hold hands with our brothers and sisters next to you and do what's right. It's our fight now. That's the rah-rah speech.
I said good day, sir.
Good day, sir.
You really needed the sad comments music for that.
Oh,
in fact,
I need a Jacob Walsh here to read it.
You guys were just saying last night how there were no sad comments because it's been kind of like a slow toy news time. Well, ask and you shall receive. The universe provides.
Maybe I'll get Jacob Walsh to do a proper remix of it in his glory.
You gotta replay that one on Toy Anxiety for sure.
Absolutely,
it needs the music.
So. Well, the fact he also compares McFarlane toys to a dictatorship, is also mind blowing. At some points, he's kind of right. Like, hey, you know what? We shouldn't buy these at this price. However, because they're saying, flood the stores, make sure these don't get bought on any shelves, all this stuff. And again, thank you to Shiny Plastic People for this. A McFarlane employee replied to this.
Oh, wow.
And this is the quote. So, the Crisis on Infinite Earth wave is an exclusive to the McFarlane toy store and produced in much lower quantities than our standard mass build-a-waves. Eye-rolling emoji. That's,
Ooh.
That's oof.
Poking the bear.
Right? That's his reply. And I was like, wait, what? Okay, so now you're doing characters that people want in lower quantities as online exclusives for $50 a pop. So now I can already see what they're saying, because already McFarlane's talked about this in digital town halls, where he's kind of going off about how it's like, oh, things need to be rare to keep them, to keep the secondary market going, because Todd's a huge fan of scalpers and flippers for whatever reason. And it blows my mind. This is who he's catering to.
I'd say it's, these sound like fair explanations to me, though, because, you have a, factories have like, minimum order quantities, and, you have to the price of the figure and the value of the figure. It's, the amount that you can make of the figure is built into that, right? Like, and so that's why there's so many Batmans, like, because you can sell a lot of Batmans. This wave doesn't have a Batman in it. I think it's a little bit, it's the price that we as fans have to pay to get some of that more obscure, those more obscure figures. And like Marvel Legends has been like very shrewd for many years by, with the Build-A-Figure concept. And, so it's like, building it around like a wave of toys, where it's like, you're going to have like a Wolverine and a Magneto, and it's all the parts are going to build, some essential big cool character figure. And that affords you the ability to slip in, an Emma Frost, or, a character that is not as known to the general public, into these waves. And that's ways you can get your, Psycho Pirates and character and Spectres and characters like that,
that's
out
interesting.
to people.
So it's like, for every
I mean,
time
makes sense to me anyway. That's what I read into it. Whereas, so this is like, and because the alternative is to just not make these characters, but people are always talking about how, like, oh, like, why is it always Batman? Why is it always Superman? Like, when are you going to help us build out our collections more? Well, this is sort of seeing, this is like, well,
you need these Batmans.
Is it worth it to you?
Yeah.
Well, they're testing the waters, and if these figures don't sell, well, that answers the question. It says, like, well, it doesn't matter who the character is. Like, this price is too much for this product. In which case, they can think of other ways to try to get those figures out there. But it's like it's where the business side of things, like, is inconvenient to, like, the collector side, or the fan side that we all want.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if this is like fair, or I don't know, like, what the logistics of this are, but, like, that explanation certainly makes some sense to me.
Sure. Hey, Todd, I know you're watching, so if you ever want to come on the show, just message me.
Yeah.
Help us out. Let us know. Mados 23. When can I get a Batman v Predator 2-pack? You know what? If they never make them, I think NECA made 2-packs of those.
Yeah. Yeah, they did, right? It was the Batman and the Jokerized Xenomorph, right? And
nothing is safe from getting Jokerized. Everybody.
Yeah.
Heads up.
And was it Superman and Predator?
Superman and Predator. Yeah, that's it. You're right. That's what it was. Those were great. By the way, those are amazing Batman and Superman figures.
Oh, yeah.
They were really, really good. But yeah, I got nothing more to say on this. This wave of figures, 53, 52. I know I have no interest in getting these. These are great. I'm very selective on what I get from the multiverse line. I'm way more into the superpowers line. Alex, do you collect any of these? Are these anything that's like on your radar?
No, it's it's not really my thing. I haven't been able to connect to the like aesthetic and execution. It's come close. I often like the idea. It's like, oh, that's a cool idea, but the end result is not really for me. But I mean, certainly, like, looking at this Crisis wave, and like some of the stuff with the Batman animated series, I'd say that people over there, that there are people that are true fans, and they're trying to make the cool stuff we all want, and they're trying to, it's clearly like people, no one at McFarlane Toys is waking up thinking, like, I'm gonna get a promotion today by suggesting we do Spectre and Graying Temple's Superman and Kid Flash, and but it's somebody who loves the book, and in the Build-A-Figure, granted, like, again, I don't know Crisis on Infinite Earths, but the Build-A-Figure, like, is clearly a specific, like, character. It's like trying to get those fan demanded figures out there. And it just
Right.
so happens that unfortunately it comes at like a higher price. But that's probably the reality, and it's probably just what they have to do in order to, make these things. And I think if you really want them and you want to see more more figures like that, more deep cut characters, this is a way to get it. And it just might cost a little extra. But if it's too
Right.
much, don't do it, right? It's like
Yeah. Always don't collect beyond your means. That's what
exactly, yeah. Right.
right? So just, and again, at the end of the day, folks, it's just toys. So it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay if you miss one. I know the FOMO can be very real sometimes. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay at the end of the day. Do you know who's not okay? Aaron Eckhart's not okay. Man, my segues are on point.
Yeah.
The Aaron Eckhart, you're the one that flagged this to me. You tell me what happened.
Yeah, so big controversy. Aaron Eckhart, I don't know what the situation was. He was at some thing, and somebody asked him, "What's the matter with superhero movies? What would you do to fix the superhero fatigue that we're hearing about?" And Aaron Eckhart was like, I don't know, the Christopher Nolan Batman movies were pretty good. People seem to like them, and I think maybe that approach would do it. So yeah, no, I mean, no shade thrown at Aaron Eckhart at all. Like he was just
No.
answering a random question to the best of his abilities. But his what he was positing was that and again, it's like people are talking. It's only because people are talking about superhero fatigue and the sort of recent poor box office performance. But I think it's also superhero fatigue is something people are like were anticipating even before that, and now this seems to confirm that. And it's only natural, right? Because it's like so many superhero movies. People are wondering like when's it going to end. And so Aaron Eckhart was saying that, he thinks that part of the popularity of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy was due to its very realistic take on superheroes. And that a lot of, that the implication being that a lot of the current movies and material is too crazy, too, convoluted, superhero comic booky maybe, and I think also the implication was that people were citing comic book movie fatigue prior to the Nolan Batman movies because Batman and Robin had done not well at the I mean I don't even know if it did poorly at the box office, but it was just not embraced by people, right? Like for whatever reason, people are like, okay, we're done with Batman stuff. It's over. And then like 2 or 3 years later, Christopher Nolan, comes out with his.
Not even that. It's the Batman and Robin came out. Everyone was kind of like, okay, we need a break.
Yeah.
Then X-Men came out. Then Spider-Man came out. And then everyone kind of got like, okay, now we're getting Elektra. And
Right.
And Ghost Rider, and people were starting to get that fatigue again. Then Dark Knight came out. Right.
Okay.
And then I feel like Dark Knight came out, and then Iron Man came out, and everything just chugged along.
Yeah.
Yeah, Iron Man and Dark Knight came out around the same time, and I think people kind of forget that.
Yeah. Well, and it's true that those and different, very different movies tonally. It's funny because they kind of both epitomize the direction of DC and Marvel movies. So like Christopher Nolan, very tense, very gritty, very realism centric films, and the DC movies all became kind of like dark and gritty and hard as a result of that. And the Iron Man movie ends with this kind of big irreverent surprise where he's like, he holds the press conference and it's building up for the thing that you just expect with these like, okay, yeah, this is where we set up that he's like, he has to keep his secret identity a secret and he has to explain the Iron Man thing. And he just goes, screw it, I'm Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like, and that is like the DNA of Marvel movies, where it's like it goes in the unexpected direction. It's going to surprise you. It's going to be more relatable than you realize. It's going to be Tony Stark eating Burger King at a press conference and talking and taking credit for Iron Man shit. Like it's not going to go the way that you think. And obviously that was like, followed up even more so by the Avengers movies. But you're right.
Avengers, in the very first Iron Man film, like that became the reason why you stay after the credits.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing too, because it's like another unexpected thing. It's like, oh shit, they're setting up more movies. Like,
wait, Nick Fury shows up in this, and he's played by Sam Jackson. Excuse me, right?
Oh yeah, well that too, because it's from the Ultimates comics.
The Ultimates.
Like, they're referencing the comics. What a novel concept! That at one point one of these superhero movies might actually say, yeah, and we know that this is based on comics that people actually read, right? But so yeah, it's true. It's like those things kind of set the tone in that same moment of like what the two different types of superhero movies that we are now seeing at their most, mutated forms, where, Marvel movies are way too, self-referential and irreverent jokes on top of meta, confusing, like too much. And this is sounding critical. I don't mean to, but expecting you to be too well versed in the comics and the TV shows and all the media, like, very alienating to the casual fan. And DC stuff is like has become so dry and serious that you've got movies like the Joker, the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie that's like this like Travis Bickle King of Comedy kind of mashed up, but with the Joker, and a very serious Robert Pattinson Batman movie, but then also like failed attempts at levity, like with some of the Flash stuff. So I think it's maybe just at a point like you say where it just needs some new like reset, some refresh. Just similar to where we were at when Nolan showed up with his Batman take, which by the way, like personally is not my preferred take when it comes to Batman.
And you know what? It's not mine either. I think the Battinson is my favorite. Anything that's out, like it's hard. Sorry, let me try that again. It is not fair for me or anyone to compare anything to Batman the Animated Series. So you have to take that kind of out of the equation.
Right.
But I think to me, the Battinson, that's the best one because it does have that serious groundedness that the Nolan movies had that people like. But it's got all those like winks and nods to the comics that everything needed. And they call him Batman, in this movie. And they call,
I think it succeeded. I also wasn't that much of a fan of the Robert Pattinson. But I mean, I like Robert Pattinson. I like him as Batman, less so as Bruce Wayne, but I wasn't that big a fan of that movie. But I feel like it got at the realistic Batman better than Christopher Nolan was trying to do it over 3 movies, and this movie was, I think, more successful at that. What if he was just a real guy in that moment where he shows up at the nightclub, and he's in that doorway and the bouncer's like talking to him, and you're like, and just the way he's like holding himself and the way he looks in the costume, you're like, oh, I could see, like, this is the first Batman movie where a guy dressed as a bat doesn't seem like such an absurd idea, because he looks like he's crazy. He looks like weird and scary, and you're like, oh, finally the like you know, I understand how this like could strike fear in the hearts of, you know,
Yeah,
criminal. You know, it's just like this guy's just like looks out of his mind, right? Like, whereas like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies were always very like self-conscious about that element, you know, because they're
yeah,
so focused on like, you know, on the realism that you're like, well, why is he wearing a bat suit? Like that does, you know, and they even like Alfred's like, why bats messed away, and it's like,
yeah,
bats frighten me, it's time I you know, it's like
yeah.
they even try to explain that, whereas this is just like, yeah, the guy's nuts, he's got like horns on his head, he looks really weird in the shadows, and like, you know, and when you let him into the club, he fights his way through like it's
He
Arkham
fights his way
Asylum, and it's,
through
you know,
the
it's just
club.
like this guy is so messed up. Yeah,
By
it's so it worked. So that I think worked in terms of
him
like,
going him going to the club uh is one of my favorite repeating gags in any movie, because it's like, well, I did it as Batman the first time, I only got so far. Then he does it as the ninja, where he's not seen at all, and he can only get so far, but only to get like to where he needs to go, he shows up as Bruce Wayne and gets exactly where he needs to go. And it's I I love that. And I love the bouncers, the twins. They kill me every time. Like, even like, whoa, Bruce. Like, anytime anyone sees like Batman, they go, he's nuts. I hate this guy. And then they see Bruce Wayne, the same people. Oh, Bruce Wayne.
yeah,
they like
right.
they geek out over him. And I'm just like, this again. I know we're kind of like slightly off top. Well, we're not really on top. Like, no, we're on top, because like, to me, like, people were already talking about superhero fatigue when this movie came out. And there's no way I had superhero fatigue when I left that theater. Like,
Mm,
and for any like, and again too, I feel like with the Disney Plus shows, the last three, or not the last three, because I keep forgetting that Secret Invasion came out, and that did not connect with me at all. But
yeah.
um Echo, first two episodes I've watched it, awesome. She-Hulk, I love it. But that's like a whole like, She-Hulk's completely different. She-Hulk's, it is self-aware and weird, and I love it. And then you've got Hawkeye again, which is, it makes fun. It's also self-aware, because it does make fun of itself, of like, this is Hawkeye, and I realize nobody likes me except for like guys like me. And so it kind of also makes fun of that a little bit too. But it's still super grounded and contained. So here's my thing about superhero fatigue. I don't think it's real, but I think there is almost movie theater fatigue with Marvel specifically. Not so like, and I think that's where the fatigue is, where people are like, oh my God, can I go through all of this again of another 10 years of a movie? So I think they need to kind of market themselves a little different in that sense, because everything I've heard about the Marvels has been that it's good. And I just haven't had a chance.
Mm,
I had a chance to either go see the Marvels or Godzilla, but I chose Godzilla
yeah.
because I thought it was going to be a limited run.
But I
Uh,
think, you know,
yeah,
right there, because superhero fatigue maybe is not happening in our you know, circles, because it's
right.
what it is it's just grown to represent or to resemble the comics more, right? Because it's like now there's like hundreds of TV shows and spin-offs, and you know, all these characters on these interconnected things that's what we're used to with comics for, you know. But the
Yeah.
general movie going audience, I think, is where they're tracking more um superhero fatigue, where it's, you know, uh, you know, and maybe it's like, maybe it is like the Eternals and the Marvels, like these less recognizable, you know, characters, right? It's like
Right.
they're not Wonder Woman, they're not the X-Men, like it's, you know, it's much, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and the movies themselves don't really give that like olive branch of like, you know, this is, you know, this is who we are, this is what you're going to expect to see if you come to this movie. It kind of feels like you have to watch a million other things,
Right.
whereas like the and then also the way the movies present themselves too, like the actual like narratives of these films. Whereas like the Christopher Nolan, like the Dark Knight, and when we're talking about the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, like we're really talking about like the Dark Knight, right? Like,
Right.
that's the one. Like the other one, like the other two, just if the Dark Knight was like the other two, you would have had superhero fatigue like much earlier, right? But it's like, but that middle movie, I remember, I watched it. My great aunt watched that movie with us. With we were like, oh, you should check out this movie. I think it was probably out on had just come out on DVD or whatever, and so we watched it as a family, and she and she was like, oh, Batman. She's like, is Robin in this? I love Robin. And we're like, this is not exactly because she's thinking of like the Adam West Batman, right? Like, that's not exactly that, but that movie, because of the clarity of the stakes in the beginning, like the you're immediately tense, like you don't need to know. I mean, you don't even see like Joker's in a mask. You don't even see Batman. It's certainly not versions of those characters that resemble what you're used to anyway. But
Right.
you feel the tension of that pretty clever, pretty scary opening bank heist. And then that movie takes its time, with stuff like Aaron Eckhart's Harvey Dent, like, and you're like, oh, this is a character I did not expect to see a superhero movie spend time on. Like, this is, he's a crusading DA. It's like from the comics, we all know that Batman the animated series, they take time setting up who Gordon is and all that stuff. There's more on their mind than just a crazy guy in a costume as the city hostage, right?
Right.
And so the fact that this movie is like kind of setting up that story, they're fighting like the mob, but then obviously Heath Ledger, when he shows up, it's the scariest, greatest, most riveting performance. It's like, he created a villain that is, like Darth Vader in terms of his like iconic
Iconography.
iconography is his image. It's just, he just shows up and you're like, yeah, that guy is scary. That's bad
Yep.
news there. And then the scene does not disappoint after that. So you have all these elements that just make a good movie, let alone, forget superhero movie. It's just kind of these story
Yes.
elements win you over in a very human way, in a very understandable way. I actually think like maybe the most confusing and weakest parts of that movie are the Batman components. It's like, there's certainly like there's certainly messy, confusing stuff, but its heart is in the right places, and it's you don't really need to be so well versed in superhero stuff to engage with it. And yeah, it's a movie that, like, wherever you're coming from, like, wins you over, and you're along for the ride.
Yep.
And I think that maybe modern superhero movies, or comic book movies, are less adept at that. I do think the stories, have been ranging from complicated to weak,
Right.
and or undercooked. They're ranging from like overcooked to undercooked, but there's like not a lot in between. And so, and yeah, I think for like the general movie going public, the bloom is off the rose, from those exciting times of like Avengers and fun
Yeah.
Batman movies.
It's got a. This is. I wanted, because the chat's got a lot to say on this, as you can probably
Yeah,
imagine.
right.
Brian Brick is saying I have bad material fatigue,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that's definitely part of it. I think there's because hang on, someone else brought up a good point that you had too. Derek Hoover. I don't know that being recognizable really makes a difference these days, Alex. It's towards you, by the way. Guardians of the Galaxy sort of broke that mold. Technically, so did Iron Man, not a household name in 2007. So you got two things going with that, with Guardians, and I feel like, and Iron Man, that the marketing for those movies, plus Robert Downey Jr.'s big return, that was a big draw for Robert
Yeah,
Downey Jr. coming back to theaters after like all his batshit crazy
yeah,
personal life, plus Guardians of the Galaxy. It was marketed, both those movies were marketed in such a glorious way that, again, that's what Robert Downey Jr. was, the drive to get everyone to Iron Man. By the time Iron Man was rolling, there was all this hype and this excitement around Marvel that by the time Guardians of the Galaxy came out, people were already excited about the next Marvel thing, and it was marketed beautifully. So
right. It was there. Everyone was just like, more of that, like more, more Avengers, more. What do you got? And having those bits where it's like, yeah, and some of that stuff that you liked from the Avengers, like that's worked into this with the rings of the gauntlet, or it's like there
all
was
that.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I think if the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out now, I don't know if it would have the same level of, I don't know if it would be embraced. It might be more of like a reception like the Dungeons and Dragons movie, where
really
it doesn't not a lot of people go to see it, but the people who do are like, it's funny, it's great, it's awesome, like, but it's too little too late.
I feel like Blue Beetle suffered from that as well.
And the Flash. I'm gonna go to bat for the Flash a little bit, because like that, has some great. It's a far from perfect movie, but there's certainly stuff in that movie that I think should have earned it a little bit more attention.
I'm just trying to think, because but I think that, like, just to go back to like even Blue Beetle and stuff as well. Like that movie, I also feel like didn't do as well because people just weren't invested in DC. I think everyone's just waiting.
No one knows who Blue Beetle is.
Well, no one knows who Blue Beetle is, and I feel like I think even I don't know how well Aquaman 2 is doing. I haven't had a chance to check, but I know that I'm getting like emails from my local theater constantly saying, "Hey, Aquaman 2, right?" So I know I'm getting a lot of that, but I think people are just waiting for that first James Gunn movie. I think there's a lot of curiosity and hype behind that. And I think we're now just like, hey, just trim the fat. Let's get this done just so we can get to this stuff. And I think his Superman movie is going to do insanely well, right? But boy, Johnny Cock, the Marvels made me cringe so hard. Spoilers. When they went to the musical planet, there's a musical planet, and Captain Marvel had a magic princess dress transformation. What?
I think you're selling us on this.
Yeah, dude. I think if you're telling me Captain Marvel has a Sailor Moon moment with a princess dress transformation, I'm going to be very, very mad at myself for not seeing this in theater.
Does Mickey Mouse join them on a adventure?
Oh my God, please tell me there's like a Marvel version of Tuxedo Mask that shows up, throws a rose. Oh, please. Thanos Copter just... I have some frustration with modern comics. Oh, dude, well, that'll be another episode for another time.
Yeah. Comic fatigue.
Comic book. It's weird. Like, I wonder too, like, I don't want to dive into this conversation of comic book fatigue, but I do sometimes wonder, it's because I am at this age now where I feel like I've read everything, but occasionally someone will do something that either like, whoa, this is insanely good. Like anything Tom King writes for some reason just hits me and connects with me in such like a deep personal level. But then you get like what's happening in Spider-Man right now, and I don't want to like tear down the writer, so I'm not even going to mention his name because I feel like the guy gets shit on enough across the internet. I don't need to add to it, but that does not connect with me at all. In fact, it almost frustrates me to read. So, I mean, I still think there's no such thing. I still think there's no such thing as comic fatigue. I don't think there's anything as comic book movie fatigue. I just think now we're at this point where Marvel has repeated the same formula over and over, and I think we're fatigued of that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think because we're fatigued of that. People aren't going to the theater, but also at the same time, again, it's the people that they're talking about having fatigue. You're right. I never even considered this. That's not us. We're not those
Yeah.
people.
But it does affect us because it's why we're paying, $50 for Crisis on Infinite Earth figures, because, it's a delicate ecosystem, right? And when the big movies are driving people towards, buying up a lot of Batman and Superman action figures, you can slide in a Spectre, and you
Yep.
can the bones of the Flash, like you can like put all that super deep cut stuff in there, and it's like it's all just, if it's superheroes, it's great, people want, so it like it I think it is worth talking about because it is all sort of like interconnected, right? And I do think that the movies are the way to get to like and video games too, but like the way to get to people outside of that sphere, to bring in the numbers that can really make the wine flowing, or whatever I'm trying to say.
Right.
Yeah, and I wonder if part of that too is just like simplicity. Like I feel like comic book movies, they've become very complex now, and getting back to sort of core recognizable things of just like, this is this character, this is their deal, this is what they're trying to do, this is what's in their way of doing it. Like, I mean, the Avengers movies, it was like, they gotta get the glowing stones, it's like 6 movies of them trying to track down, whatever, and like so and so's in their way of, it's like, I mean, I'm not saying that's like brilliant, but I'm saying that can help people, bring people in, this idea of like, oh yeah, I know what these characters are trying to do. And we're in a little bit of like a purgatory period or whatever. And I also, one thing I would like to see, like some standalone superhero movies come back, because especially when it comes to like Batman and Superman, because it is just, one last point on the sort of like return to realism thing. I view like Superman and Batman, they're almost more like fairy tales or fables.
Yeah, you could throw Wonder Woman in that mix too, like the Trinity itself.
Absolute mythology, right? Like,
right.
It's so I'm less. I feel like the more you shine a light of realism on those worlds, the more absurd it starts to appear, to the point where you're just like, why isn't this just like James Bond instead of Bruce Wayne, or whatever? It's like, why not just fully set it in the real world and don't have the sort of Zorro element? Whereas like like the Tim Burton Batman movies like hit this great and the animated series, this great tone for me, where it's like, it's even set in this like pseudo Art Deco. It's this like non-existent time and place, right? And it just it helps.
Like,
it makes
is it the 30s or is this the 80s? We'll never know.
Yeah, exactly. Like people have big shoulder pads, like it could be either double-breasted suits or like
double. Yes, right. But everyone has 80s style haircuts and tuxedos,
and computers, but like old cars, like whatever.
It's a beautiful balance, because it does feel like you're watching a Max Fleischer cartoon brought to life in its own sense, right?
And I kind of wish that we had a Superman movie that took that approach, where it's like a Fleischer kind of thing, where it's just this. Yeah.
I want to. I have absolutely. I wanted to get to that point too, because when I watched Godzilla -1, it had me go like, I would have loved to see a 1940s, 50s Superman cartoon, or not a cartoon, but still, or a live action movie. Like seeing how they were able to make a 1940s, late 1940s Tokyo in that movie, I was like, oh, you could 100% do this now for like any other movie.
Yeah,
that movie had no budget.
Because these concepts are like kind of anachronistic, like they don't really belong in our modern world. Like, it's like a gigantic monster stepping on buildings is like a very kind of like old fashioned like now it's like, well, what kind of technology, satellite could we shoot a laser from to kill him, it's like, and same
Yep.
thing with Batman and Superman, where it's just sort of like, you know and I'm not saying like they should be like period movies, but like just set in a setting where you're not thinking about like, well, what impact do cell phones have on the existence of
What does what
a
yeah
man who can
what
fly?
impact? Well, I was thinking too, like what like I was saying, yes, I think that's where there needs to be this weird kind of like balance of modern and old. Because do we really want, like, I think, what am I trying to say? The InfoWars style Daily Bugle in
Yeah,
the Spider-Man MCU stuff,
right.
awesome, because that's a great way to like modernize it, because
Yeah,
again, people are like, newspapers, but at the same time, I don't want them to lose the Daily Planet. So I would be okay if there
yeah,
was no internet, because
yeah.
like it's got to,
Because I
like,
think,
how hard would it be to maintain uh a dual identity, especially when it's like, hey, Superman keeps saving Lois Lane. Isn't Lois Lane married to Clark Kent, like the world famous reporter Lois
yeah.
Lane? Isn't she like married to that guy that looks similar to him? Like it's,
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
like silly. You have to put it in a place where you're not like,
yeah,
you're not thinking too much about that, because like, yeah, it's like it's
yeah,
fairy tale. It's
right.
you know.
I would, I would just touch base with the chat here a little bit. I'm trying to get better at that.
Yeah, I
Real
know
quick.
it's hard to.
uh, Matt Bush is saying he's got adulting fatigue. I can, I absolutely 100%. Zach is saying read more indie comics. Problem solved. You know what? I will
Yeah, it's good
absolutely
advice.
support indie comics. We wouldn't have Ninja Turtles if it wasn't for indie comics. So just remember that, right? Like it's Christopher Negri saying, I stopped buying modern Marvel before Disney bought them. And I went back to reading older 80s and 90s back issues. And I'm catching
Yeah,
myself doing
same.
the same. Well, I think it's because I discovered Epic Collections. And now that I
Mhm.
discovered Epic Collections, it's just like, oh, these are great. This is everything I want, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see here. And then Matt Bush is also saying, pandemic trained my wife to no longer go to theaters. She prefers watching at home, which is why I think they need to stop releasing movies right away onto streaming. Make us wait.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. That's what
And
I
and
feel.
s and some of these theaters need to step up the quality that, that doesn't quite compete with, most TVs and, sound systems these days. Like, it's like we
Well,
we live in a time where, like, you can have a pretty good theatrical experience in a living room, so it's a lot to compete with, you know?
and people, they need to also uh be a lot, this, maybe this is me being old, but I think they need to really start to enforce theater etiquette. I think that's
Yeah.
another thing that needs to come back. Something that
Well,
somehow got lost during the pandemic, and people seem to have forgot how to act and just sit and watch in a movie theater. Like, put your phones down, shut up, watch the movie.
although nowadays theaters tend to be so empty that it's like your chances of running into like a rude person are much smaller. It's like you're not hearing like bags crinkling or talking. Like
Right?
the latest bad theater etiquette. I went to see a late night screening of Godzilla minus one, and there were maybe like four people all in different parts of the theater. Four people in it, and every person fell asleep at one point. Like I heard snoring from every part of the theater at one
Oh
point
my
in that
god.
movie.
Uh
It's a good movie. Go see it.
right?
See it in a theater. It's a good.
Thanoscopter saying, like, I'm surprised American studios haven't done the manga to anime approach. Uh
Yeah.
I don't think American studios even know what manga, or anime even means.
Well, I think in terms of like a straight adaptation.
Straight
Um,
adaptation, yeah.
yeah, it's a good point. Um,
And where's my live action Romna movie? All right, let's get that going.
yeah,
It's
TV
it's
show.
time.
Come on.
Right? Anything. Derek Hoover, yes, long ass movies too. Christ, because
Yeah.
Matt Bush was
Yeah.
saying how it's like movies were 90 minutes, then you could go and enjoy your day. It's just like I totally hear that, even
And
though
it's
I'm
just
sitting there going, the Batman's 3 hours long. I can watch it every day.
and it the length is also usually evidence of a structural problem because, movies are the length they are because we require certain pacing out of stories. And if you
Yep.
get to a point in a movie and they're not satisfying that thing that psychologically you need to tell you like how much time is left in this movie, you're gonna check out on some level. Like it can't just be this. It could be an embarrassment of riches of cool scenes and crazy CG and characters, but if it's not like in that structure, you're gonna get. I mean, the average viewer is gonna get fatigued
Yep.
and start
Agreed.
looking at their watch, especially during like the later half of the movie.
Thanos Copter brings up an interesting thing here, and I can explain this to you as well. Especially the Disney owning Marvel, dude. Some well done 2D animation adaptations would be nice. Fun fact: 2D animation is a dying art, and it's not because people don't want it. It's because people are not trained to do it on that level anymore. They get trained up to a certain point, and it's usually about a TV level of 2D animation, and that's it. There are not enough animators who know 2D animation at the quality that you're looking for in a theatrical release to do a theatrical 2D movie. So just so everyone knows, because trust me, this is a conversation that comes up plenty of times when we are doing our hiring for artists on Spider-Verse movies. It's finding those artists, and it is tough. Also bring it up. I'm curious to how the X-Men 97 cartoon will be. We are very excited, and we will be doing reviews and talking about it on this show 100%. Tony Taponi would love more period piece superhero movies. Same here. Gotham by Gaslight, please. Nathan,
oh wow, yeah, that'd be cool.
Thank you for being here. Yes, my Spider-Man showing was ruined by someone talking the whole time, right? We don't need that. We absolutely do not need that. Mega Grayman, thank you for being here, hanging out. Ryan, have you seen the Dollarama or getting Hasbro Power Rangers Zords for $5? Oh, I'm gonna have to go check it out. I did grab, I did grab all the Marvel retros. I have the entire collection of Marvel retros. Bought them all at Dollarama, $5 a pop. I love it.
Nice.
Just trying to see here before we get going because we're gonna saddle up here. But I think we are good. See, here we go. YouTube has a ton of older movies on the channel for free. I watched a bunch of older films, and they were like they were 1:30 to an hour 30, an hour 45. They were great, which is also awesome. I love that. So be sure to check YouTube for all of that as well. So that's it. We are well over an hour, but this is a great episode.
Speaking of length,
yeah. Speaking of length, we also need to finish at 90 minutes at the max because you guys have other things you need to do as well, right? So with that said, Alex, you got any final thoughts?
Just hang in there, support what you love, and love what you support.
And if you support us, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Come back and join us next week as well. Just so everyone's wondering too, hey, I thought Alice was joining the show. Yes, she is, but she had to fly back home to Australia for family emergency, so she'll be out probably until the next 3, maybe 4 weeks. We'll give her however much time she needs. But until then, you definitely got myself, and you definitely got Alex. So we will be back here next week. How do you feel about this for next week? If there's no news next week, we do a watch along of Pride of the X-Men.
Don't have to tell me twice.
Awesome. So, you know what, folks? If there's no news, if there's nothing big coming up, we're going to watch Pride of the X-Men together. And I will make sure everyone has a link to, because that's on YouTube as well, and that's how we're gonna watch it. And I can't. That'll be super super fun. So I'll see you on Tuesday for Toy Anxiety. I will be back here next week with Alex here on Gotham City Tonight. And with that said, everyone have a good night. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.